I have been using my little Bosch Unio for several years, and it is actually quite a useful and powerful bit of kit, especially in such a compact format and with a neat little box. It is super useful not only for hammer drilling holes, but also for screwing, especially as it's all possible with a simple bit change from quick SDS to normal hex bits. Unfortunately, the battery is slowly giving up, allowing me to only drill a few holes at a time and then having to wait hours for the drill to recharge, as this older model does not have a removable battery. Since the new Bosch Unio had mixed reviews and I already had some tools and batteries from the Ryobi universe, I decided to give the Ryobi SDS hammer drill and a brushless Ryobi drill a chance, and I love them. However, the biggest inconvenience with Ryobi tools is that they only sometimes come with a fabric bag, which I did not get, and there's no proper toolbox for them. Now, tools such as Bosch Blue, which is the professional line from Bosch, come with very nice stackable toolboxes called the L-BOXX. This so-called systainer has the advantage to be stackable and be compatible with other L-BOXXes, which I really like. So, I was having the dilemma of trying to find a suitable toolbox to protect and transport my Ryobi tools adequately, and I definitely did not want to throw them into a loose bag. So, after doing a bit of research online, I decided I would want to vacuum form an inlay, which is just a plastic negative of your tools to hold them in place. And this I could then nicely place into an empty L-BOXX. However, the lovely staff at the Fab Lab in Groningen advised me against building such a huge vacuum former and said I could just use expanding foam to make my inlay and cover it with epoxy to make it more sturdy. I was then still having the issue of finding a suitable L-BOXX. Whilst Bosch sells their L-BOXXes online, I wanted something a bit more special and close to heart, and this is when I checked the website looking at all the companies that use L-BOXXes, and amongst many designs and companies that use these boxes, I found Fischer. Now, Fischer is a company that I highly value as a DIY person, and their wall plugs and screws are just phenomenal, and I have been a long time fan, so it only seemed suitable to use their box. The Fischer box is actually really for professionals with a lot of high-end fixing materials that I, as DIY guy, cannot really afford and do not really have a use for. So, I started by sending a message to the Fischer social media team asking if I could order one L-BOXX but empty, and they gave me the product code to order it from a wholesaler. I then started contacting wholesalers in my area, and none of them were willing to help me, except Kroon. Now, Kroon is a wholesaler with all sorts of building and construction gear in the north of the Netherlands, with fantastic staff that took my request very serious, and they didn't let go of this issue of trying to find me this empty Fischer box, so they even contacted Fischer directly because my empty box was not available in the Netherlands. After a few days, the marketing and product manager of Fischer Benelux got in touch with me directly and said that they managed to find some empty Fischer boxes and they would ship them to the Netherlands, to the wholesaler Kroon, who forwarded my request and project idea. A little while later, Kroon emailed me and told me that my box had arrived, so I jumped straight into the car and drove to their main store in Hoogezand. The store blew me away with the layout, the friendliness of the staff, and the products and prices they were offering. I had a really good chat there with several staff, and I will certainly return for my future DIY projects due to this amazing experience I had. So I can really recommend to get in touch with Kroon should you have any sort of DIY or building problem and you are located in the north of the Netherlands, or just to stop by, as they have a great selection of professional tools and the staff are extremely friendly. At this point, I also have to say a huge thank you to Fischer for helping me. So after having a quick chat with the lovely staff, I took my first L-BOXX as proud owner and drove back to Groningen to start the building of the custom inlay. What I learned from my past use of the Bosch tool in the Bosch case was that there needed to be a solid solution to hold the tool in place, but actually what was annoying me about the Unio box was that you could not fit a tool with an attachment or a bit in it inside the box. So that was something I wanted to change for my custom inlay, and I also wanted to include a charger and a spare battery and have a good compartment for all my drills, because in my Unio box they were all just flying around and constantly annoyed me. So having summarized all my wishes for the new box, I started with having a look at the box and planning the layout of the tools. The box has a handle in the lid to carry the box and any boxes below, as well as a handle on the front with 2 heavy-duty latches to open the box. I then got in touch with Mr. Boat Epoxy, and whilst they were not interested in supporting this project, they were still friendly enough to advise me and recommend their 15 times expanding 2-component foam that you literally just put together and then it foams up to 15 times of its initial size, which we tested with a little sample. Then, to not having to use so much foam and reducing waste, we covered up all the tools with old cling film and paper towels so that they don't get ruined, and that once we remove this extra layer afterwards, there's a bit of a gap between the tools and the inlay, so that the tools are not sitting too tight to be removed. This was quite a long and tedious process, but we finally managed to wrap up all the tools and made all the little cardboard boxes to create negative space for drills, for example. We also had to lift some tools off the box's bottom so that they would sit flush against the lid, so that later on they do not rattle around. We then started pouring the foam. Now, the foam expanded as we wanted, and it was super sticky, so it instantly adhered to the box. But unlike normal construction foam out of a can, this foam turned out a bit harder, which I guess is very useful for some applications, including this. However, it made it extremely hard to cut out anything, so it took us a few hours to actually cut out everything until we reached the tools. We then continued to shape the inlay in a way we would want, and once this was done, it was time to coat the inlay with epoxy. Now, in some spots, we didn't have enough foam as we didn't want to waste too much, so we left holes or gaps and just covered it with cardboard, which isn't ideal, but it still gets the job done whilst keeping the box as light as possible. The epoxy came as a component kit, and we added some blue pigment to contrast the nice red of the box and the green from the Ryobi drill, and of course to hide the color of the foam. The epoxy unfortunately ran down smooth surfaces, so those surfaces we cut, the epoxy adhered to perfectly, But those surfaces we left and didn't touch after the foam stopped expanding, the epoxy didn't really stick to. And although we applied 3 coats of epoxy, overall it didn't fully cover up those areas of the foam. But in the end, it still turned out relatively good, and I'm happy with the result. So here you can see the finished inlay. A custom vacuum formed tool inlay out of plastic would have maybe looked a little bit nicer, but it would have been way more work and time consuming. And with the time constraints we had for this project, it was not really feasible. But it might be something I will revisit in the future for another L-BOXX if the opportunity arises. Overall, I'm really happy with how the inlay turned out with the foam, the epoxy, and the tools just fit great and sit in there very securely, and it just looks good, especially in person. Now, this project would have never ever happened without the support and commitment of Bond from Kroon, who persevered and got in touch with Fischer for me to help me out with this project. And of course, a massive thank you to Fischer, especially to Patrick van der Korst and a few other staff for their generosity and help with this. It was so nice that they were working together and were trying to get one of these boxes across the border into the Netherlands for me to do this project. So please do support them both. They're both great companies. The staff were great sports, very helpful and very friendly. And if you're in the area, just make sure to stop at Kroon to find some nice Fischer fixation materials maybe. I've been using them myself, regardless of this project, and I will continue using them. Also, feel free to visit their websites. The links will be in the description. Now, thank you very much for watching. If you have improvement ideas or any other comments, please do let me know down below in the comment section, and if possible, I will revisit this idea of a custom inlay with a vacuum former in the future for my SDS drill. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Please do give this video a like and consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.